Liz Walz, and I'm the Executive Director of the Genesis Center. And I've worked here for almost 2.5 years. And I found out about Genesis when I had just resigned a position and was in the process of getting married and planning a wedding and all of that. And a friend of mine saw the job posting for the position here and emailed me and said, Liz, I thought of you when I saw this. Have you seen this? And I had not heard of Genesis at that point in time. I did not know about Westfield. But when I read the mission statement online, I thought, wow, I connect with this place. And so I ended up applying and eventually got the position. And I've stepped into this amazing legacy that Sister Elizabeth certainly is the foundress here and has had a huge impact on everything from what's planted in the garden to how the rooms are decorated to what the program's offerings are to how we do spiritual direction. And I love her, and I think it's mutual. And so it's been neat to be influenced by her, and I feel like I'm still learning about what the legacy and the history are. And Sister Anne is an amazing spiritual director. She was the predecessor in my role, and I felt very supported by her presence. And one of the things that Sister Anne brings to me is, in kind of the challenge to grow Genesis Impact and increase our visitors and our guests, Sister Anne is the one who will always say, it's a crowd of people, but they're individuals, and every individual needs to receive the Genesis hospitality and to be seen and to be connected with. And that's definitely a challenge, but I love that voice is always there calling all of us, the whole staff, me and the whole staff, that each of us, each person who comes here is a seed of God, and that we want to recognize each person. And so the effects of that are, for example, one time we had an elderly sister here, and she was pausing in the stairwell to tie her shoe. And at that time we had a part-time maintenance guy who passed her in the stairwell and then turned back and said, "Are you all right? Do you need anything?" And she said, "Even your maintenance staff, wanted to make sure that I had what I needed and that I was okay." And so that, that makes us all feel, it makes me feel proud that each staff person is owning the mission and really gets what we're trying to do here. And so I feel like the sisters set the tone for that, and so far I haven't wrecked it. So that's my contribution at this point. So in terms of thinking about how it's unfolding, in the past couple of years, I've been working with Elizabeth and Anne, and then we also have support from Sister Ruth McGoldrick, who was a longtime retreat leader here and on the program committee and a spiritual director, and she's a theologian who lives nearby. So I've been learning about what has been important to them and how their roots back as Sisters of Providence, and even beyond that back to St. Vincent de Paul and Louise de Marillac, like how the spiritual threads are woven through those centuries even. And so two of the programs right now that are kind of front and center, one is focusing, biospiritual focusing, which is a way of being present to how I experience each moment and the world, and my awareness of divine activity in that experiencing process. So we've been working with a wonderful group of women. It happens to be women at this point, training them in being focusing companions, because as we continue the spiritual direction ministry here, this is a tool that people who encounter it, their response is often, how can I have not known about this? Like, how can I not have been doing this all of my life? In terms of just being aware, like, what is my body carrying right now? What is it trying to tell me? What's the intelligence there? The divine intelligence. Why am I willfully ignoring it at times? So we're all learning about focusing, and hopefully this fall we'll be stepping into leadership in spreading that good news. Here at Genesis and more broadly in the region.
How do you see the relationship between between that practice and, say, centering prayer, or there's Father Keating, there's Father Lawrence Freeman, World Community Christian Meditation.
Yeah.
There's TM, there's Buddhist meditation, mindfulness.
Yes.
Where does it fit?
That's an excellent question. And I would say all of those are cousins, I think, in mindfulness practice or awareness practice, centering practice. During the past couple of years, one of the gifts that we've had as we've been learning focusing is Skype interactions with Father Pete Campbell, who was one of the co-developers or co-founders, co-discoverers of biospiritual focusing. And one of Father Pete's, one of the significant pieces of focusing for him is that when we're going through our lives, when I'm going through my life, and let's say something painful happens, but I have to get to work, I have to act like a professional, I have to get through the moment. Maybe it's an extended illness or something, and for days or weeks or months, I have to, put on a face for the world. There's a term for that we call as process skipping. And all that means is right now, whatever this physical reality is that I'm carrying related to whatever the incident is, it's too much for me to be fully present to right now. And so I'm going to just move through the world until I get to the time when I can really let down my guard. Maybe it's letting the tears come, maybe it's letting the rage come, maybe it's letting the joy come. Like, I can't skip around here all the time because I'm an executive director. So when people are doing mindfulness or centering prayer, it is possible that in the moment that I'm using these other modalities, I'm trying to soothe myself or comfort myself or remind myself of God's consolation, and all of that is completely legitimate and beautiful. And it's not the same thing as really opening up to what that feeling is and unpacking the story that it is and what it might be connected to, and letting that process run its course. So process skipping, we do that because we have to function in the world. But if we don't know we're doing it, and if we go from situation to situation and we're just kind of accumulating all of this energetic stuff, landfill, and it gets it piles on. So in the focusing process, one of the things that has been so beneficial to me is at the end of the day, I can go home, and this is almost like the examen of conscience from the Ignatian tradition. When I go home and kind of pay attention to each conversation or each incident that had some sort of emotional charge, when I can lay them all out in front of me, and then I pick them all back up and I put, and move on with my evening, the fact that I've at least acknowledged each one, just briefly, maybe even not fully, when I put them back, the load is lighter and my thinking is clearer. And then I start to notice, wow, I'm moving through the day as if there's some sort of pressure on me, or, oh, I'm free from that pressure right now. I myself, I use meditation practices, I use yoga, I use lots of different mantra or chanting, different ways to bring soothing to myself. And so the invitation to me in focusing has been, before you start soothing yourself, be real to what needs soothed.
What do you see the connection to the current Roman Catholic world?
I grew up in the United Church of Christ, which was a very positive experience for me in Kansas. And then through, the college experience and the years after that, I had experiences with different faith communities, including Habitat for Humanity, which brought me into the Roman Catholic Church. At a wonderful parish that was staffed by Vincentian priests, and their charism of service to the poor really resonated with me deeply, and I'm grateful for the ways that's changed my life. When I moved to Massachusetts, I did not find another parish to join, and actually worked at a yoga center for a while and explored the way of knowing God through that tradition. And so when I learned that Genesis was part of the Vincentian tradition, it felt like coming home. It felt like what the Sisters of Providence have done in this area for the last 141 years in terms of touching the lives of people who don't have economic resources, people who are in need physical healing, spiritual healing, that is profound, and I felt really at home in that part of the tradition. My starting here roughly coincided with Pope Francis stepping into his role, and that's been a very welcome transition for me. I really resonate with his simple living, his washing the feet of young men and women who are incarcerated, including Muslims, his comments, who am I to judge? I mean, I feel like we're getting back to each person is the seed of God, and let's get away from things that keep me from recognizing you as seed of God, and just try to stay focused and loving each other, because it's hard enough. It's hard enough. The Sisters of Providence and Sister Elizabeth have had a deep, long-standing commitment to the earth and creation spirituality, and that's something that we're carrying forward. And so next year in 2016, it's going to be Genesis 40th anniversary. We're going to be certifying the grounds and dedicating and blessing them as an arboretum, which is a museum for trees. It's a living museum. It's a living icon. It's another phrase that we're using. And we're hoping with that to educate people and inspire people about the spirituality of all creation and our role in it, and to further hope and healing both for ourselves and the environment through that effort. So all of these things that are unfolding, they're kind of, in some way, they're almost culminations of the work, but in other ways, they're just a marking of ending of a chapter and starting of a new chapter. And my hope is to continue steeping myself in the wisdom of these women. And we'll see what the future unfolds. We'll watch for the sign of the times, and we'll see where the energy goes, and who's loving us back. And that's how we'll know what's next.